Hi, I'm Joyce Fishman, creator of Carousel. Today, I'm your host, happy to introduce someone I admire. We have in the studio Elsie Wheeler, an eager traveler who will be taking us on a tour of Syria, Jordan, Iran, and Tibet, countries she visited and photographed in the 1960s. Things are different today. Travel warnings have been issued for Syria and Iraq, and visas are hard to come by. But we can sit back, relax, and enjoy the scenery. So, Elsie, what was your first trip like abroad?
My first trip?
Well, your first trip to Iraq, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Tibet.
It was terrific. I mean, I had traveled a lot before then, but I just loved coming across things like this is the Crac de Chevalier, and it's a medieval crusader castle.
Now, where is it? There it is. Okay.
Chevalier. And this whole area is very arid and very interesting to look at. And one of the reasons that I chose these countries is because the U.S. government won't allow people in. I mean, obviously you can't go to Syria now. And they said that they were controlled. And so I said, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, if you go there, you either get shot or you may get kidnapped. And so I thought to myself, well, I've got pictures of these places before anybody was shooting them or bombing them. This is the temple of Bacchus, and it's on the border of Syria and Lebanon. It's very famous. It's 150 AD. And it's the temple of the sun, and Bacchus, as you doubtless remember, was the Roman god of wine. So the next picture is, all this is in Syria, but here is Damascus. And Damascus is the oldest inhabited city in the world, and this was in 333 BC. That is a long time ago. Also in Damascus, there's this beautiful mosque. The handwork of adorning all these mosques is not to be believed. It is simply extraordinary, the labor that went into these places. Now we'll switch to Jordan. A fascinating place, Jordan. There is a whole city that's been carved into a huge rock ledge. I mean, huge. I wish there was a man in that city that would show you a little more of the proportions of it, but it's very, very big. And it was started in 312 BC. So it's lasted a long time. It's the capital city of Nabatean. Then you go around it on a camel. So Jordan, this is Jordan also, and these are men in Amman who are welcoming us. You can't really see them welcoming us, but their hands are all up and they're waving to us. Now in Amman, Jordan, I was sitting with my friends and having a ginger ale. And I thought, this is very boring, because outside there was a great celebration, and here it was. So I got up and I went through a kitchen door and another kitchen door, and I found myself in the middle of a wedding reception. So I ran back and got my friends, and they were very friendly. All these people, they were thrilled to have Americans there, and they gave us lemonade, which is all you can drink in Iran. And I noticed the swords that are here. It was very, very, very thrilling to be this, but be invited, not just crash the wedding. Iran is our next spot. Whoops, this is Tibet. What happened to Iran?
Well, let's talk about Tibet.
Tibet, all right. This is one of the holiest places, and a monk is about to prostrate himself, just to lie down on this slab, having walked for 100 days on his stomach. And finally he got here. There it is. The next is also Tibet. It's this is Lhasa, and this is the holiest site in Tibet, and it attracts crowds of prostrating Tibetan pilgrims all the time. So
What are the animals that are up there? Oh, well, this is a new one. What is this?
This is the Kumbum Stupa, otherwise called a monastery, the Palakor Monastery. And it's the second most important site in Tibet, and it was built in 1418. And it's absolutely extraordinary. It goes up in levels like a wedding cake. And the monks are all around it, and are very friendly, except for one that I'll tell you about.
Are these the monks?
These are the monks. And I was in this service. And so when you travel in Tibet, they always want you to buy a ticket for a quarter. And so I, of course, always go to the photography place, and I always get the ticket, and I always put it in my pocket. And in this particular place, as I left it, I went out a little hallway, and an enormous monk with his friend, they picked me up under my arms and skidded me right out of the place, right out of the whole monastery. So when they finally put me down, I said, "What's going on here?" And of course, they don't speak English. So it turned out, whoops, this is a picnic, and there are two yaks, the two black things that you see in the foreground are yaks, and here's a family, and all those people have gotten on these yaks and come out here to where it's green, and they're having their lunch. And presumably they get back on the yaks and go wherever they came back from.
But I want to know what happened with the people in the last story.
The people in the last story, well,
Yeah.
He put me down. He said, "You can't be in there because you don't have a photography ticket." And I said, "I do have a ticket." So I pulled it out of my pocket, and he said, he looked at it, and he said, "Oh, that's expired." And I said, "Well, I haven't expired." And I tried to say, "You're crazy," because I just got it, 30 minutes before. So we left it at that. This is artwork this is a Tibetan beast. They love to make statues of the beasts. And I think this is a particularly alluring one, if you like beasts.
Oh, look, who's this?
Oh, this is a rather impoverished lady watching a festival in Tibet. But I just thought it was an interesting image.
She's lovely.
She was looking at the festival, which unfortunately we're not looking at. There it is. They love their festivals. And in Tibet there are 1,000 dogs. So the dogs all come to the festivals too. It's an extraordinary, very holy Hindu religion in these monasteries. We're now moved to Iran. And this is in a nursery school. It's a recess in a nursery school, and I've called it Giggles and Laughter because that's what it was. And I love the shadows of their feet all dangling down. Oh. The next is also a school, but it's a school, a rather high school age school, and this is the uniforms they wear. And when you're in Iran, you wear a chador and a headpiece, just the way they do. I saw one. Whoops, I don't have my headpiece on.
Here they are.
This is a market. The markets in Iran are unbelievable. And this is a lady who's trying to, this is a metal and copper, metal, and ceramic place or piece of the market. So she's trying to find a ceramic in there. Persepolis, I know you've heard of, and they do the most beautiful carving. This is all carved out of a huge piece of stone. And sometimes the figures, they're mostly, you remember the Egyptian figures, these are sort of the same position. And they look as if they're marching, but they look as if they're marching right to somebody or other who's rather in bad shape. Now we have another here's another one in Persepolis. I'm sorry I don't have a date on this one, but I think he's a very elegant horse in front of a tower. And Iran is also a very, very pretty place. The next is, oh, I love this shot. This is a carpenter in the marketplace. But I think he looks like he's giving himself a pedicure with a large saw. And his other saw, you can see his other tools alongside him on his bench. In Iran, the Great Blue Mosque is the most famous place, and that's in Isfahan. And Isfahan has a huge arena in it, and the horses and the carriages, and they all go around the arena. And so there are all these kind of wonderful buildings to look at. And so I wanted to go on a horse. I was up having a drink in a sort of a bar, and I saw all these people going around in their carriages, so I went down below. I looked at my friends in the bar, and I said, why don't we get one? So we did. These three guys, they were probably all in their 20s. And down we went, and we got a carriage, and we all got in it, just kind of a squish. And we went around the whole circle. It was the most fun I've ever had. And when I got out, I tried to get out first so I could pay for it. And when I got out, they'd already paid for it. And that's the kind of hospitality I got. This fellow on a donkey who barely has his
feet raised.
He barely has his feet raised. This is an interesting thing. This is in Iran. Now remember, Iran is old Persia. This is the whole area of where Persia was. This is the tower. Behind him is the Tower of Silence, and it's the Zoroaster religion. And that was started in 618 BC. So these are very, very wonderful old relics. Now they have a custom here because you can't bury anybody in the desert. That doesn't do much good. So what they do here in this town is they put if you're a Zoroaster, they put the dead bodies up high on the tower, and the vultures come and eat the flesh, and the sun dries the bones. So they come back in another 10 days and put lime added to the dry bones so they disintegrate. I suppose that's an ancient form of incineration. But it sounds rather grisly to me, but it looked very pleasing to the vultures. So that's the story of these countries that are now being bombed, and it just tears my heart out to look at the newspaper every morning and see these wonderful, wonderful areas that are absolutely being trod over and ruined with nothing. Our children will never see this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That it's always interesting to go and travel because you meet people that you wouldn't know, and it's often that they can be very kind and enjoy you, and you, of course, enjoy them. So where else have you gone without the pictures? Well, I know you took pictures, but we could talk about it even if you don't have them here.
Well, I did. I was in Austria,
Mm-hmm.
and I was coming back from going around the world, and I was meeting friends in a certain town in Austria.
Mm-hmm.
And this was very exciting. It was rather like James Bond because they told me where to get off, and then without being able to find me and tell me, they changed the spot because the train was not going to stop at where I was supposed to get off. So what they did was they jumped ahead and got to that area and then got on the train, and they had a very short time to find me, and which they did, luckily. And then you in all those European trains, you push the window down and throw all your luggage out.
Yeah, the window, yeah.
And they were there to pick them up. But
Mm-hmm.
I was very surprised. I mean, I was not expecting them at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that was delightful. And the other people that were sitting in the train were somewhat awed by this strange creature that was suddenly being kidnapped off the train.
So, what other travels? I'm trying to think of my travels because I also enjoyed.
Yes, yes, you did. Well, I traveled in Africa.
That's an interesting place.
Where
in Africa?
Mostly in Kenya.
I was in Kenya as well. Yes, go ahead.
And my daughter was spending a semester in Nairobi.
Hmm. I was in Nairobi.
Of course you were. So I found that fascinating. And we did a lot of going around Africa on a horse.
Oh, really?
Which
I
is
didn't do
very,
that.
very, you have a much higher view.
Mm-hmm.
You have a view like a giraffe.
Yes.
You can look a giraffe in the eye. And the only difficulty is when you get off, you can't walk.
That is a little problem.
So that seemed to be somewhat of a drawback to that. But other than that, I found Africa very, very interesting.
Yes. I used to belong to Women Welcome Women.
Oh, yes.
Which was a wonderful, and it's still it's still organized. And you join and you pay, I forget how much it is, but at any rate, you get a packet with all of the members all over the world. And then you look and you decide where you would like to go. And you can write to somebody and say, well, I'm a member of Women Welcome Women, and I'm going to be in your area around this time. And can you put me up? And you would be invited into their home. And I always brought a gift, but you couldn't stay more than 3 days.
Yes.
But the people were very eager to have you. I mean, not everybody signed up. Only the people who wanted to have guests would sign up. And then somehow the first time I was planning to go someplace. I said, well, how do I get to you? And she said, well, you get off the train and I'll be there to pick you up. And I thought, and she was, you know. Another time, someone took me to her home, and then as soon as we got in, she said, you know, I have to go to work. She handed me the key to the house, told me that if I wanted to walk around the area and see what was there, that would be fine, and she'd be back for dinner. So the people were really amazing, and it was interesting to see how they lived, because you could...
Yes. How would you know otherwise?
You don't know. And there was a sense of the women would be very protective of their men and very, very serving. I mean, and the men very often were working hard and would not be back until late. But it was a great way to meet people, and very often I would have somebody who was going to be away from the house and would have some, let's say if there was entertainment or somebody would show me a museum, they would take me to the museum and then leave and come back and get me. But very often I would write to them. You know, I would take pictures and then say, I would take pictures of people that I didn't necessarily know, and then say, well, if you give me your address, I'll send you a copy. And sometimes it led to to getting letters back and forth, which was kind of nice. You know?
Yes, that's a wonderful
So
way
it was
to do it.
it was really a wonderful way of getting to know people, and getting a sense of who they were and what they did, you know. And especially, sometimes it was very interesting to see how people, how couples got along, you know, who was doing the work and and it changed. At one point it was a young couple and the man cooked, you know, which wasn't true of the other people that I had met. So traveling is great if you want to travel. And Women Welcome Women is a very interesting organization because there's a lot of kindness. People don't necessarily not everybody wants to have company, but if you sign up for Women Welcome Women, then you do. You know, you're interested in meeting other people.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And how do you reach them?
You can look in your computer and look for Women Welcome Women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then you'll see better what's going on.
Terrific. Thank you. That's wonderful news.
So, and I want to thank the people who are watching us tonight, because it's our pleasure to have you, and we enjoy we really like to have you interested in what we're doing. And I'm going to say goodbye to you because it's time to leave.
Oh,
so thank you so much for coming.
Well,
it's
thank
really
you.
a great pleasure.
Great experience.